Hey folks, Lexi here. Allow me to posit a question, if I can. How do you feel about the Rider Waite Smith? What were your first experiences with the Rider Waite Smith? Is it your favorite system? Is the 1909 Rider Waite Smith one of your favorite decks? Do you dislike the art? Do you dislike the fact that it lacks diversity? So, today I want to introduce a new series. You're thinking to yourself, another new series? Well, look, I just started the second installment of my decks I will never bring into my collection and why series. And today, like I said, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things that I want to do with this channel. I have a lot of commentary that I want to talk about here in the next couple of months, next couple of videos, next couple of weeks, so on and so forth. But in this next series that I'm starting today, I would like to talk about in the defense of dot dot dot. Today we'll be talking about in the defense of the Rider Waite Smith. So in this series, I will be talking about certain ideas, certain decks, certain systems that I think we should really look at with a different lens and maybe see the pros and cons and how, while we might not like something, we can acknowledge it for what it is in our tarot community. So, stay tuned. Today we're going to be talking about in the defense of the Rider Waite Smith. So, first things first. If you learn nothing from this channel, from me, from Lexi, if you learn nothing else from me, you should know that I will encourage you to say, hey, I don't like this art. I don't like this art. Today I will be showcasing the University Books Incorporated Pink Onk. Again, I've displayed this before in at least one video. Oh, can't forget her. So, a lot of people will talk smack about the Rider Waite Smith. God, I love the coloration of this. A lot of people will talk a lot of mess about the Rider Waite Smith because they don't like the art, which is fine. If you don't like the art, please, by all means, there are so many decks on the market that use the Rider Waite Smith. There are so many decks on the market that use the Rider Waite Smith system and imagery to convey the same point. Maybe you don't like the coloration. Maybe you don't like the line work. Maybe you don't like how old-fashioned it looks. All completely valid, all completely within your right to disagree. Again, like I said, if you take nothing away from my channel, take away the fact that you don't have to like this art. If you hate Rider Waite Smith, if you hate Pamela Coleman Smith's art, please, by all means, tell us about it, because we're all aware of like it's modern. It doesn't seem like it's especially beautiful, so on and so forth. I personally love Pixie's art. I love her art. I really do love this coloration. It's really wild and uh-oh. Well, I'm missing the 4. I bet it's behind here. Ah, there it is. I must have taken it out for some reason. But anyway, I personally do love Pixie's artwork, and I don't find any issues with it. But I do understand how some people might dislike the artwork and might feel like it's a little old-fashioned and might feel like the lines are a little thick or whatever. I will get into the lack of diversity here, but that's a separate point in and of itself, because most people, the two major points that people talk about when they discuss their dislike or dissatisfaction with the Rider Waite Smith deck itself, not the system, because the majority of people don't have any qualms about the system itself, right? They just dislike the deck, but they're fine utilizing the 78 cards and what Arthur Edward Waite wanted for this deck, because um, it's the most widely used tarot system, and the vast majority of decks that we come to know in the marketplace are based on the are based on the Rider Waite Smith system. So it's fine to dislike the 1909 deck itself. You're okay. And I acknowledge and validate, hey, you don't like the art, you don't like the art. I'm going to be the last one to tell you, hey, let's calm down. Stop talking mess about the art, please, by all means. If you hate it, let us all know, because that's valid and that's cool and that's fine. I'm not going to begrudge anyone their opinion on the art. Again, like I said, I personally love the art, but that's neither here nor there. So, with that out of the way, if you dislike the art, I acknowledge you, I validate you, and you are within your full right to dislike the art, because I get it. We've all been there. And in my next, I shouldn't be giving you hints on other videos that I'm going to do. But in my next, in the defense of, I will be talking about a deck that I used to hate that I currently love. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that in the future. But like I was saying, if you dislike the art, you're correct. You're valid. That's your opinion. Art is very subjective, and I want everyone to stand up 10 toes down. I dislike that, and that's okay. So let's move on. I suppose I wanted to stick on the art and the lack of diversity here for just a moment. Um, there are no people of color in the Rider Waite Smith, but I'm not going to attach my 2026 morals to something that was created in 1909. We are correcting these mistakes in real time, with the Melanated Classic Tarot, with the Chinese Tarot, and El Toro deck Millennial Lotteria, just to name a few. I do have, let me see, let me get this. This is the 1909 Rider Waite Smith Sawyer Redux edition. This is the, I believe, the first edition. I'm not entirely sure. I do apologize. This is extremely diverse, and it's not just, you know, checking some boxes, ticking off a couple of, oh, we need this many people of color, we need this many people of the LGBTQI plus. This feels very organic and natural, and not like it's pandering to any kind of like I said, like a checklist of what you would need in a deck that would make it diverse, a selling point, right? This just feels natural and organic, and people that you would encounter in everyday kind of scenarios. And it's one of my favorite, um, you know, just Rider Waite Smith remixes of sorts. And I also did want to showcase. This is the pastel writer, and this one isn't isn't as natural. The colors are a little funky. I do love these backs. They're fabulous. I believe I purchased this from Make Playing Cards some many years ago. It's a fabulous spring deck. I use it most years since I purchased it. Oh goodness. Oh goodness, I've had this maybe 5 years, 4 years, 4 or 5 years at this point, and I use it in the springtime just because it's very joyful and welcoming of spring and everything. So those are two Rider Waite Smith, same Pixies art, more or less. So like I said, I don't dislike Pixies art. I can acknowledge and understand why people would have some misgivings about the lack of diversity in the art. I will say this. So, we all know that Arthur Edward Waite commissioned Pamela Coleman Smith to do the art for his deck. And he primarily focused a lot of his attention on the majors. He really wanted to put these signatures, these keys, these icons in the 22 major arcana. That was his main focus. And he kind of let Pamela Coleman Smith not do her own thing. He did instruct her, but he left the minor arcana to her. He left it to her own artistic devices. Now, this is where I will say that there might have been a touch of diversity. So, there are a couple of different rumors and speculations and theories about Pamela Coleman Smith. One of them being that she might have been of mixed race. She could have potentially been Jamaican, or she could have been potentially of Asian descent. Those are the two widely rumored, and I don't put a lot of stock, I don't put a lot of value in those particular rumors. I do know that she did spend some time in Jamaica with her father while he was working on the Jamaican railroad system, I believe. So she spent a lot of time in Jamaica as a young girl. And she did learn a lot of Jamaican folk tales, which then inspired her to recreate these and illustrate Jamaican folk tales in a few of her books. So I can see the connection there, where some people might assume she would be of mixed race. A lot of stock in that theory. I just don't think it's true. However, the second theory, the second rumor, which I do put a lot of stock in, I do think is very credible, is that Pamela Coleman Smith was a lesbian. So, and some of you are just like, what? And some of you are just like, yep, I knew that. So, toward the end of her life, after she converted to Catholicism, Pamela Coleman Smith spent several years, at least dang near 2 decades, living with her female divorced friend, Nora Lake. Pamela Coleman Smith never married. Okay. She was also a British suffragette. I feel like there's a lot of S's. She was a British suffragette. So she was trying to get British women the right to vote, right? That's what that means. Never married, working for women's rights, and she designed sets for various playhouses. So, hanging around with well-known lesbians, working for women's liberation, and working for theater companies painting sets. So you're trying to tell me there was not one homosexual person that she came in contact with? Not one. I often say, because again, I do believe that Pamela Coleman Smith was a lesbian. The biggest queen in the Rider Waite Smith deck, you're thinking, oh, well, that's the Empress. No. That's the Queen of Swords, Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Cups. No. The biggest queen in the Rider Waite Smith. Are you guys ready for it? I don't think you're ready for it. The biggest queen in the Rider Waite Smith is the Two of Pentacles. You can't tell me that this person here isn't of the LGBTQIA. Look at that hat. Look at that dramatic hat. It's giving foppish. It's giving dandy. Like I said, I do not believe that there weren't homosexual actors literally in the Rider Waite Smith that she did not take inspiration from. So you can say that there is a lack of people of color in the Rider Waite Smith, but you cannot say that there isn't some sort of LGBTQIA plus representation. I mean, if we even want to go that far, let's go to the world It is a widely known fact that the world is a hermaphrodite or intersex. I'm pretty sure it's a hermaphrodite. But again, this is only hearkening back to what I am saying. The Rider Waite Smith, for all its faults, for all its flaws, for everything and anything that you want to talk about that you dislike, I completely agree. But you cannot say it lacks diversity when it comes to the queer and the LGBTQ community. You just can't, because there's so much in here. And then how dare we? How dare we assume that every single person in how dare we assume that this person is straight, right? It's ridiculous to me, because we are putting our 2026 standards and morals on something that was created over 100 years ago, when we know for a fact that queer people existed then and now and years ago and years in the future. So I don't want these like super flamboyant gay drag decks when it's all here. That seems like a fun party. But if I'm overstepping, if I'm making untrue statements, please correct me. I don't mind being corrected. I often say that just because I don't like something doesn't necessarily mean that I can't understand and appreciate its cultural significance. Because let's be honest, if it weren't for the 1960s hippie movement that made the Rider Waite Smith, that forced the Rider Waite Smith to become mainstream, those hippies walked so we could run. And that's what we're doing right now. We're creating so many decks that correct all of the mistakes that this art did, right? Again, you don't have to like the art. You just have to acknowledge what it is and why it's so important now. Because, like, I don't like Elvis Presley. I'm not a huge fan of Elvis Presley, but I cannot deny his historical and musical significance on us today. Without Elvis Presley, it would be difficult to imagine how a very handsome, young, white man could bring a white audience to historically black music, right? So I appreciate him for that. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to be a fan of his, because it's fine. It's whatever. It's not my bag. I can live without it, right? And just like you can live without the Rider Waite Smith, but you cannot deny its historical significance, because it's there. Most of the decks that we know and that we love are based from this system. So this is in the defense of. I'm not trying to tell you you have to love the Rider Waite Smith, because you don't. You really don't. But I guarantee you there are several decks in your collection that you love that are based off the Rider Waite Smith system. So the angle here is show a little respect. Just show a little respect, because you don't have to love everything. I'm telling you that right now. You don't have to love everything. But the wild unknown. Oh, Terra police are coming to get me. I don't like the wild unknown, but I cannot deny that it was the resurgence of the tarot community. People who had left tarot for some time coming back because they saw this deck at Barnes and Noble, because they saw it at a boutique, because it was the first deck that really made a splash in what was it, the mid 20 teens, right? That was when people started coming back, started looping back around. Well, I was in tarot back in the early 2000s, and I left it, and then I saw the wild unknown, and boom, I'm back in it again. You know what I mean? As much as I dislike that deck, I can acknowledge that it really did give the tarot community a resurgence. There are more people coming in, and more differing views is so important in this space, because like I always say, you cannot live in an echo chamber. You cannot continually do the same things that you've always been doing, live in a hug box, and just hear the same opinions repeated to you back 5 times a day. So, this is the beginning of this new series that I'm starting today. It was a little haphazard. I was doing a lot of research for this video with this behemoth of a book. I purchased this in late 2023 when it came out, and literally I remember it. It was like a few days after Christmas, and it came in this huge big tome of a box. And like I said, I did a lot of research with that, and it came with this facsimile, and it's a, oh, there it goes. It's a pain in the butt to open, but I'll tell you, Tasha knows what they're doing. Of course, I can't get it out. The cardstock is quite nice. Love the backs. It did come with the little Arthur Edward Waite small book. Oh gosh, I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it's in my purse right now. I don't want to go grab it. I try to get everything situated here in the tarot room before I start filming these videos, and I'm pretty sure I left that in my purse. Anyway, so please talk to me. Please tell me, how do you feel about the Rider Waite Smith? Do you hate the deck? Tell me why you hate the deck, because honestly, all of those opinions are valid and I agree with them. There are lots of things that I dislike about the Rider Waite Smith, but at the end of the day, I do love it. I love the art. I love what Pixie was doing. Again, I do think she was a lesbian. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Feel free to correct me. I do not think she was of mixed race. If you have some information that could potentially change my mind, please feel free to drop that down in the comments. I would appreciate that very, very much. This whole thing of diversity, oh, well, you hear these, so-and-so was a racist, Aleister Crowley was a racist, Arthur Edward Waite was a racist. I've got news for you. They're all racist. They were all racist. Attaching our 2026 values and opinions and thoughts on how society should move and act. If you do that, you're going to be disappointed every single time. They were all racist. They all had horrible, terrible views and thoughts on humanity. We can separate art from the artist, because I guarantee you all the people who are reading them Harry Potter books, they're certainly separating the art from the artist. Just saying. So we cannot put our morals and our values on something that was created over 100 years ago, because it just doesn't make sense. And think about all the things that we are doing and saying today, 20 years down the line. 20 years down the line, things that you're saying and things that you're doing could potentially be seen as out of vogue or a faux pas. Or you have to separate the art from the artist to continue to enjoy the work. Although at this point, I think we can all agree Pamela Coleman Smith was a badass, and there's no fault. If you find fault with her, please don't tell me. I don't want to know, because I love Pamela Coleman Smith. I love Pixie. I think she was an amazing human being. I've done so much research on her. I know a lot about her life story and everything, and I just think she's a fabulous, fabulous human being. Arthur Edward Waite, he was kind of a nerd. Self-professed nerd. He really saw himself as a scholar, and he didn't really believe in too much. He left Catholicism, and then Pamela Coleman Smith converted into Catholicism. So it was a very interesting story. If you get a chance, God, I have all these Rider Waite Smith texts. There are like 4 of them just floating around. If you do get a chance and it's on sale, don't buy it full price. I know Tashin does these sales quite regularly. Pick it up. It's a fabulous read. Um, yeah, that's it. In the defense of Rider Waite Smith. If you hate it, cool. If you love it, cool. Let me know your opinions. Thank you so much for joining me today in my second series that I'm doing. I promise, I think this should be my last series. I have 2 series now under my belt. I have Decks I'll Never Purchase and Why, and In the Defense of. So I will figure out how to make playlists for those soon. As soon as I have at least 2 or 3 per series. This is the first video in the series, In the Defense of. And if you have any thoughts or suggestions or questions, please leave them down below for me. And I hope to see you guys very, very soon. I will have some content for you then. Bye, folks.